The next aspect of JavaScript that we'll be talking about is going to be events, not JavaScript DOM. I know I said JavaScript DOM, but we'll be talking about events first. Now, okay, you know what? I'm going to rephrase this. We're going to be talking about JavaScript DOM now. JavaScript DOM and what DOM actually means. So I'm going to give us like a very simplified definition of what your DOM is. Now, basically, your DOM simply stands for your document object model. Now, this is what your DOM basically stands for. Document object model. And with all this big English, your DOM is a what? Is your HTML. This is everything. So what we are talking about now is what? JavaScript DOM manipulation. That means JavaScript HTML manipulation. Again, your DOM stands for your document object model, and your document object model is basically your what? Your HTML. That's basically what it is. Now, what you're going to be doing with your DOM manipulation in JavaScript is what? Manipulating HTML to give you the functionality that you want. You understand? That is basically what your DOM is. Your DOM is saying, okay, I want to manipulate HTML. Sorry, I'm going to manipulate my JavaScript to give me certain functionalities that I want for my HTML. Now, that is what your DOM is. Now, for you to understand your DOM, you need to take in two major things. First are your what? Your properties, and the second is your what? Your method. Now, you have these two important things: properties and methods. Now, again, I'm going to rephrase. DOM is basically called your document object model, which is your HTML. Then you now use JavaScript DOM manipulation method to manipulate your HTML elements, to get the functionalities that you want. You understand? Now, it is just the same thing with your CSS, right? Whereby you have your HTML and then you're manipulating your HTML with what? With CSS to get the design you want. You understand? So it's the same thing with JavaScript. Now you want to get the functionalities you want, so you have to manipulate what you have with JavaScript. Now that is basically what your DOM manipulation is. I hope everybody gets the definition I just gave to us. Is it clear to us? If it is clear, give me a thumbs up. If it is not, you can also unmute and let me know what you don't understand. All right. So that is that about your DOM. So now, two things that you need to put into consideration in your DOM, right? So now, I'm going to go scroll down to this place so that we understand. Now, when we talk about DOM, as I said, it means what? The document object model. So the DOM is the structure of a web page that JavaScript can interact with. That means DOM manipulation means using JavaScript to change or update your HTML elements on a web page. Now, what do you do with your DOM? Changing text, changing styles, adding new elements, removing elements, and what? Manipulating all of those HTML elements. Now, as I said, you will need to focus on two major things on your DOM. The first is your what? Properties or methods. And the second one is your what? Your methods. So you can put the two for themselves. You need to focus on your what? Your methods and then your DOM. What are methods? DOM methods are functions used to select and manipulate HTML elements. Now, I'm going to cut all of these things out so that we can talk about them one after the other. Just a moment. So now let us talk about get element by ID, query selector, get element by class name, and query selector all. So we'll talk about three actually. Okay, so we'll talk about these three. So the first is what? Get elements by ID. We'll talk about get elements by class name. We'll talk about query selector. So these are the things that we will talk about in details. Now, let's get started with get element by ID. As I said, when we talk about method, right, we're talking about selecting HTML elements and giving them functionality in JavaScript. That's your method. Now, in your CSS, how do you select HTML elements? You select by using the element, class name, or IDs. If you remember, right? Now, it's the same thing with your method in JavaScript. Your method is now saying, okay, for you to be able to select elements, although you don't select them the same way, you just have the same concept. For you to select elements, right, in your JavaScript, what do? All you have to do is you select them by either the ID or by the class name or by the element name, or you use a particular method called query selector, which we'll get to. Now, for instance, let me open up my HTML file here. Just a moment, please. So let me open up my HTML file here. Let's say you have, now there's a div here, right? That has a class of what? Create. Let me go ahead and create an H1 that also will have an ID of new. Let's just use this. Now, this has a class of what? Create, right? This has an ID of new. So I'm going to duplicate it so that we can see what we have. So now let's look at it. A class of create ID of new. If I want to select this ID of new, right, in my JavaScript, I can use get element by what? ID, right? So if I get the ID of what's new, what happens is that what I will now select the H1 element just like we do in our CSS. So if I go ahead and say, oh, document dot get element by ID, and I select what? New. Now, what have I just done? I have just selected what? This particular ID into my JavaScript. So anytime, anywhere if I give this a functionality now, it's automatically going to appear. So now let's check it out. So first of all, I'm going to set this to a variable. I can say let heading, or let's say let heading tag equals to what? Document dot get element by what? ID, right? Now let us now say heading tag. So I'm going to do some things I probably haven't seen. Heading tag dot inner HTML should now be equals to what? Welcome. Now if I save this up and then we check it out in this place, what are we going to have? We are not going to have, okay, so let me remove this one. I don't think we need it again. So let's check it out. I'm going to refresh. As you can see, I did not input welcome in this place. No, it was empty. All I had to do was call this new year, and then I can give it whatever information I want to give to it. So I can also change the style. I can say heading tag dot style dot color equals to, let's give it white. So let us check it out now. So as you can see, it is now white. You cannot see it again. So it's now white. If I give it blue, and then we check it out, what are we going to have? Blue color. Now we are using JavaScript to get to change the configurations, the normal configurations of this element only by what? Selecting the method. Again, get element by what? ID. So I know that this is looking new, especially this one. So ignore these two that I just did now. I need to know if you understand what methods are, how to get elements by their ID now. Is it clear to everybody? If it is clear, give me a thumbs up. If it is not, also let me know in the chat box.
Please, can you explain again, please?
Okay. I'll explain again. So, wait just a moment. So this is what I'm saying. Your JavaScript DOM manipulation basically means manipulating your HTML with JavaScript. Now we did CSS already, and we were shown how to manipulate HTML with CSS, right? By using the class, ID, element, blah blah blah, a lot of those things. Now it's the same thing with JavaScript. JavaScript manipulates HTML elements, but in different ways. Now, CSS will manipulate HTML and style. JavaScript will manipulate HTML and give those HTML decent functionalities. You can also style with JavaScript, but majorly for functionalities. Now, for you to be able to do all of these things, you need to take two things into consideration. The first is what your method, and the second is what your properties. Now, I'm explaining methods. When we talk about methods, methods are ways of getting HTML elements into your JavaScript and then what? Giving them the functionalities you want to give to them. That's what your methods are. So we have the same thing with CSS, whereby if you want to select your class name, it is now what? .create. You understand? That's CSS. But in HTML, sorry, in JavaScript, it is not the same thing as CSS. Yes, you are selecting, but they have different syntax. To select in JavaScript, you use some methods as like get elements by ID, or you use get elements by class name, or you can also use what? Query selector, right? So this, you can use a lot of them. There are more to this, but these are like the three major ones that you're going to always use in JavaScript. Get elements by ID, get elements by class name, or what? Query selector. Now, as you might have guessed, if you want to get an element by its ID, use this method. If you want to get an element by its ID in CSS, what do you use? Hash. But in this case, you use this particular method, which says get element by ID. If you want to get elements by class name, you use this particular method. Now, query selector is not like a combination. You can use this query selector to get both ID or class name or even element name, which we'll get to. Now, let's say you want to get the ID of this particular H1 that says what? ID of new. How do you get it? You use what? Document dot get element by ID, and then you specify the ID, which is what? New. Now, this is how you get it, because you are getting the document by what? The ID, and the ID is what? New. Similarly, if you want to get the class name that is here, create. How do you do it? You can say document dot get elements by what? Class name. And what's the class name? Create. Now, I need you to note something. There's an S here, but there is no S here, right? So I want everybody to think about an answer. Why is there an S in this class name and there is no S in the ID? But before you answer the question, I need to know if everybody understands what methods are now. Is it clear to everybody? Please give me a thumbs up if it is clear. Then I also need everybody to answer this question. Try and answer that question. It's important. This is a coding class, and I think everybody should always think about things. So why do we have an S in class name but no S in the ID? Why is it so? Who wants to help us out? This is an online class, and I actually need everybody to just come out, say something. It's very, very important that you contribute. Why do you have an S in the class names, in the get elements by class name, but no S in the ID? Mr. Kelvin.
Can I try?
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. I think ID is targeted at a particular element. Why class is like a group of elements, or class is like a house housing a lot of elements or other elements.
Correct. That's the major reason. That's it. So I've said it multiple times that whenever you're trying to use class, it is actually targeting like a group of elements, while IDs are targeting just a singular element. And that's the same thing in this case in JavaScript. So JavaScript automatically sees class name as well a group of elements. And that's why it says get elements by class name. But when it comes to IDs, they don't see IDs like that. They see ID as just one singular element. So it is just what? get element by what? By ID. Now that's basically the difference. That's what it means right here. So now this is basically how you get elements just by using method in JavaScript. Now, when we talk about properties, right? Properties are now saying, oh, these are now the things I want to change in this element. Do I want to change the color? Do I want to change the text? Do I want to even give this thing additional functionality? Do I want to get the value? Do I want to give it additional functionality? It is now properties that will now do that. Now, we've done something similar in CSS, whereby so we've done something similar in CSS, whereby we have something like this. So we're gonna have dot. So let's say you want to start the new. We are gonna have dot new. Do you not put this like this, right? Now, when we now talk about the properties are now like color, white. Now those are properties. Now it's the same thing with your JavaScript. Properties are now saying, oh, I want to change that particular element and give it a new look. Now, for instance, let me put this to a variable. So let's say let new variable equals to what? This. So I've set this particular ID to new. So we have a lot of properties. We have properties like we have inner HTML, we have inner text, we have value, we have let's see style. We have a lot of them. So now let's try and change now there is no text here, right? Let's now give it a text with JavaScript. So giving it a text with JavaScript, you can go ahead and say, oh, to give it a text now, all we have to do is say new var, which is what we just did, dot inner HTML. I'll explain this very soon. So we can say welcome. Now, if I save it up and I come right, as you can see welcome now. So let's change it to welcome to class. And I save it. So if you check it, you have welcome to class. Now, that is one thing about JavaScript. So now, I'm going to explain all of these things in details. When we talk about inner HTML basically helps you change the HTML content. You understand? Changes the HTML. Now, when I say HTML content can be text, can be images, can be videos, can be links, can be anything. You understand? But when we talk about inner text, see, inner HTML is like, there's something we call universal. It changes anything. But when we talk about inner text changes or manipulates only the text of an element. That means inner text only works for what? Text-based elements. Now, text-based elements like what? We can have your H tags, P tags, span tags, and more. You understand? Now, this is what your inner text is going to do for you. Now, the value of an element basically changes the value of that element. This is mostly used in what? In forms, in form inputs. Mostly used in what? In form inputs. Then we now have the style. Now, this particular style just changes the style of the web page. So changes the style of the element. So changes the style of the element. So of course, you can also, like I said, you can style with JavaScript, but it is not compulsory. It is not advisable rather to style with JavaScript. Now let us take all of these things one after the other. Let's say I'm going to do the same thing with this new var. Just use inner HTML. So if I say new var dot, as you can see, I'm always using a dot if I want to use a property. I can see there are a lot of properties here. So you have let's check some of them out. So as you can see, you have children, you have class list, you have a lot of them. So let's say new var dot inner HTML, right, equals to what? So we're going to say this is week 8. Now, if you check it out now, it has changed this thing to what? This is week 8. Even if I come back here and say welcome, what you're going to see now is not what? Welcome. You're not going to see the welcome here, because this JavaScript is what's taking the precedence. It's not going to be what is going to change it. So this one that you put here does not really matter again. The HTML does not matter. It is not the JavaScript that matters, right? It's similarly, if you say inner text, it's still going to give you the same thing. Inner text, it's still going to give you why? Because it is text-based, right? Okay, so inner text is, as you can see, this is week 8. It is what? Text-based. You understand it now? Now that's what inner text is going to do for you. So inner text and inner HTML are similar, only that inner HTML is universal. It helps for text, images, videos, links, and a lot of things. Anything concerning your HTML properties or your HTML elements is what inner HTML is going to do for you. But inner text is only what's limited to text. So a very good example is saying, okay, you have an image here. So you have an image in this place, right? With there is no source attribute here. So if I go ahead and I say, oh, let me give it an ID of img. Good. So let image. So let's say image equals to what? Document dot get element by ID. So what are we getting? We're getting img, right? Now let's say I want to give it an image, right? If I say image dot inner text now, no, I'm not saying inner text, right? Now if I set it, let me put the URL in this place. So let us just get a random image. So let's just get a code image. So let us just let's copy this one. Where's my mouse? Okay, so let's copy this one. Copy image address. Then we'll paste it here. Now I want you to check what happens. Just a moment, please. So I'm going to use Unsplash instead. This is too long. So I'm going to say unsplash.com. Then let us try and let's just copy any image from here. So let's copy the image address of this place. Good. Then I'm going to paste it here. Good. Now, let us check if we're going to have the same thing out here. So check it now. As you can see, we are not having the image here because why? We are saying, oh, this is inner text. And I already told you that inner text only works for what? Text. But if I change it to inner HTML now, let's see if this is going to work. And let's check it out. Okay, so inner text isn't working. Inner HTML also isn't working. So is it that we did not use the right? Okay, you know what? Let me try something else out. So if I check a URL now, and then we'll put this here, then let us check it out. Okay, so that's not the, it's not the what's the name? Okay, so now basically what inner HTML is just saying is that what it does not allow you change the content of the text. I think I can use inner HTML on something else. I'll think of an example and then I'll show us what I'm trying to say. Now let us move on to the next, which is value. But so far, do we understand inner HTML and inner text? Is it clear to us, please? So far, is it clear to us? This is why everybody's quiet today. Miss Favor, is it clear to you? Please, I've not been hearing your voice. And Mr. Vincent, Mr. David, and Mr. Kelvin. Is it clear to you too?
So I'm trying to figure out the difference between the inner HTML and the inner text. I think I don't understand the inner text.
Okay, so let me look for. Okay, so now, when we talk about inner HTML, inner HTML is basically focused on the content. So I'm looking for the best example to actually use. So inner HTML is focused on the content rather than just text. So let us look for examples. Differentiating inner HTML and inner text. Good. So let us check it out. So now, for instance, let us look at this. Good. Now, as you can see, inner HTML handles content as HTML markup, which means it recognizes and renders image tags, while inner text handles content as plain visible text, ignoring HTML tags and CSS styling that hides elements. So I'm trying to look for the best example now. Also say container. All right, good. So now this is one thing that happens now. As you can see, it says, okay, let me use the um okay, let me just say dot inner HTML here. Then I'm going to console.log new var. Now I want you to check out what you have in the console. Let me refresh it. Welcome. Okay, it's not. We don't have. It's supposed to give us something. I'm trying to look for. Okay, you know what? Let's try the create first. Let's use this create. Let's say let's div equals to this. Then we're going to have dot inner HTML. Good. Then I'm going to say console.log div. Now let us see what we have now. Why is it saying div is undefined? That's just a moment, please. Okay. Okay, so let's check it out now. All right, still saying undefined. It's not supposed to be giving me undefined. It should actually bring out the properties of okay, you know what? Let's do something else. I'm going to say divs dot inner HTML and no, not here. Dot inner HTML. So let me see what we have here. Okay. I don't think I can. Exactly. So it's giving me exactly. So now, this is what the inner HTML is basically trying to say. So now if I refresh this, and then the inner HTML is actually going to give me the properties of this particular div. But if I'm talking about the text is just okay. I don't think I actually need to like um um spend much time on this, right? But just basically what he's saying is that what if you talk about inner HTML worries more than just the text, right? It worries more about the content of that particular element. You understand? I'm saying div.create. This is basically the HTML collection, right? This is just more than the normal listing. So it's going to have the tag name. It's even going to have the text. Probably it even has it has children inside of it. It's going to tell you. Now as you can see, it has the first child, and I'm trying to look for the elements that it has under it. Now that's basically one thing about inner HTML. So as you can see, I see the children that it has under it, H1 and P tag, right? Now that's one thing about inner HTML. But inner text does not worry about all of these things. You understand? It only focuses on the what? On the text. Do you get it now? So if I go ahead now and I say, oh, console.log new var rather than what? New var dot inner HTML, right? So what are we gonna have? I'm just gonna have, as you can see, don't have anything. Let's check. Does new var not have anything? Okay, this new. Let's have welcome, right? It is basically just going to give the what? Text. Can you see it now? Just the text rather than what? A collection of what that particular element is all about. That's one thing about inner HTML and inner text. You get it now? So inner HTML is basically, oh, I'm going to take everything about this element. I'm not just limited to text, which means I can have videos, I can have audios, I can have images, I can have a lot of image or a lot of properties. But inner text is only focused on what? Text. You get it now? So that's the difference between what your inner HTML and inner text. I hope you understand this. Is it clear to you, Miss Favor? Or you're still having issues
Yes,
understanding it?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So now that's one thing about inner HTML and inner text. So one more thing that I want to talk about before I give us time to like probably write this down is values. So when we talk about values, right, we're basically talking about changing the element, right, of changing the value of a particular element. So let's take for instance, I don't think I need this again. So let's take for instance, we're gonna have a form. Let's take a form input in this place. So we're going to say form, right? And the form is going to have an input here. So let's just give it an input. Input, right, of text. Now we're going to give this input an ID of name, right? Now, if I bring this in now and I say, oh, let's form input, or let's form name equals to what? Document dot get elements by the ID, right? And then we're getting what? Name, this particular name that is here. Now, I can now decide to say, oh, I want to set the value, right? I can now say, form name dot value equals to what? Paul. Now, if you come right here now, you will now see the value automatically set to what? Paul. I did not set anything. Automatically, it was just what? Paul. You understand it now? So this is basically what values are. Value is just saying, okay, they are basically the value of a particular form. Now, let us take a particular scenario whereby user inputs their name into the form, and after inputting their name into the form, what happens? A welcome message shows. with their name. Let us try it out. So now, what are we going to do? I'm probably going to like do something much more complex than we already have. So now, what am I saying? I'm saying that whenever user inputs this particular type here, right, and they press submit, what we want is that what we want to see. So we're going to say button. So submit. Once they press this submit button, we want to see their name in the console. So how do we do this? One thing that I can do again is I can bring this ID. I can give ID of BTN. I can bring it to my code. So I can say let form name equals what? Normally the form name, and let BTN equals to what? Document dot get elements by ID, right? And then we're gonna have what? BTN. Now, what are we trying to do? We're going to get the value of this particular person, and then automatically we're going to console it to the what? We're going to print it out to the console. So how are we going to do it? We can easily just say, oh, btn dot add event listener. Again, this is something that we've probably not done before, so don't worry, you understand events very soon. Btn dot add event listener. So we can have function, right? We can say, or let us use an arrow function instead. Right now, whenever the now user clicks this thing, what we want to do is we want to say form, we want to like just console.log form name dot value. That's what we want to do, right? So now we're not gonna have what. So I think that's everything that we actually need to do. So if I come right here and I say Paul and I say submit, as you can see, what do you have? Oh, there's a mistake there. So let's just say e dot prevent default. So now, if I come right here, if I refresh it now and I say Paul and I click on submit, why is it giving us this error? Paul submit. Okay, I think I know why it's wrong. So let me pass the E into this place and let's try it again. So I refresh, and if I say Paul, as you can see, what do you have here? You have Paul in this place. Now that's basically what the value is trying to say. The value is basically saying, okay, I want to get the form value of this particular user, or I'm going to try to get the value of whatever this person imputed in the form, just to what give me a reply. So that's basically what value is. That's basically what value is. But this example might look too complex. So just take this example as your take home for now. So we have the form input. We are going to get this form input into our JavaScript. That's what you can say let form name equals to what? Document dot get elements by ID. And then what I'm going to get is what? Name, which is going to be what? This particular form. So we can now manually change the form input that is here. So we can just say form name dot value will now be equals to what? Paul. So now if you check it out now, we have what? Paul automatically set. You understand it now? So this is basically what values are. Value will basically just what? Change the form name or change whatever input it is that you are giving to a particular form input. I hope this is clear to everybody. Is this clear to everybody? Nobody's giving me a thumbs up. Looks like it is not clear. Okay, it's clear to one person. We have 2 people. Okay, good. We have 4 more people or 4 more persons. Miss Favor, you have a question. Please go ahead.
So this value thing, is it acting like a placeholder? Can users also put different names and it will show in the console?
Okay, so I was expecting this question. Values and placeholders are not the same thing. So it does not exactly act as a placeholder. It is saying, I'm changing the user's value automatically. So that is why values are very important. You don't tamper with the value. You only get user values, user inputs. You don't automatically set the value. If you notice, when I first of all give you the example of this one, right, I had to change this example to this one that actually gets the user value. So the only time, if I use, let me show you what I'm trying to say now. If I use this one now, right, if I use this example now, it is now the user that now says, oh, I'm inputting my name, so it's going to show. So it has to be what the user exactly inputs, that now shows, as you can see. But as opposed to what we did before, right? We just did, setting values by ourselves. You don't actually set values by yourself to make it look like a placeholder. You are going to get a lot of errors like that, or probably sometimes give users details that are not their own. So it's best that you do not set the values, but you would allow user input their values. Is it clear to you now, Miss Favor? Is it clear, or you still need me to explain it in a different way?
No, sir. It's clear.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Kelvin and Mr. David, I have not heard from you. Is this clear to you? Mr. Kelvin, Mr. David, are you on the call? All right, so let's move on. I'm going to pause the recording here now. Give us time to write whatever it is we've done. Then we'll move on to